So I was all prepared to preach to you on the sower. I've done it many times. And I have a homily burned into my head because this was the weekend of my ordination 24 years ago. I was ordained on July 13th. And so this was the gospel, Cycle A's gospel on July 14th. And so I worked on that homily for months. Basically, from the day my ordination was set, I looked at those readings and thought, okay, what would I preach on this? And some priests have someone else preach at their first Mass, and I think that's a complete cop-out. If you can't preach your own first Mass, we just had an oblate ordained a couple of weeks ago. Like, how do someone else preach her first Mass? Preach it. Okay, anyway, I was all set to do that. In fact, I used a bit of that homily this morning with the Visitation Sisters. I had their Mass this morning, and I'm like, I don't think I really want to do that. So when I came back from that Mass, I started to work on that middle section, if you will, where Jesus kind of getting into the Isaiah prophecy and why he uses parables. And I came with what I thought was a really good message. And as I often say, I preach for me. If you like it, it's just because you're on a similar journey. But I'm only telling Geoff what Geoff needs to hear. And that's just the way it works. So I'm like, oh, this is good. I like this. And then as I'm driving here, something happened on the expressway that made me go, oh my gosh, I wrote this homily 5 days ago. And I posted it on someone's Facebook post as my theater director from high school. Her and her husband bought a new car, and she talked about how they bought this car because they thought it was unique. And then they're driving around, and she says they see it all over the place. And I said, there's a reason for that. And I have to read this to you only because there's no way I could remember it, because in one sense, it's the homily. All right. I just said, hey, I love this post. It's fascinating how our minds work. That's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, right, that does that. It acts like a filter, because if we didn't have that, we'd literally go insane, right? We get so much stimulus, visual and oral, we would need this. It reticulates what makes important. So I said, but when something becomes important to us, a new car, a new word, a new musical, she was my theater director, our ROS is what it's called, the reticular. Our ROS starts bringing those things to our attention. And suddenly they seem to be everywhere. The world didn't change, our attention did. And of course, Betsy, there's a spiritual lesson here for us. If we train our minds to look for reasons to be irritated, we will find them everywhere. And if we intentionally look for beauty, kindness, or sign of God's presence, perhaps we'll begin noticing them everywhere too. Maybe we're seeing more of what we've taught ourselves to notice. So as I'm driving here, I'm like, oh, there it is. And I think that's what Jesus is driving at when they say to him, why do you talk to them in parables? It's not that Jesus is trying to make it harder. He's pointing out the importance of where our attention is. Parables don't make it harder. On the contrary, they make it easier if we were attentive to what was being said. And Isaiah makes that really clear. They close their eyes, Isaiah says. God doesn't close them. There's the reality for us. It's not that God's speaking less, it's that we've gotten noisier. And most people, as they move away from God, it's not some direct rebellion. It's more often the case just like slow inattentiveness. Less awareness, less attention, less attendance, less, being involved. And then you find yourself in a space and you go, oh. And then once you've done that, you've lost your vision for the miraculous. How indeed would you possibly see it? And then that quickly moves to the Eucharist and say, this is as simple as it gets. There's no fireworks going on here. It's bread, it's wine, and its incidents and accidents, if you want to get philosophical, they don't change. It still looks like bread. It still tastes like bread. It still looks like wine and tastes like wine. But we believe with every fiber of our being, this is different. It's now the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And so it's also not just his presence being given to us. It's the thing that gets us attentive to finding his presence anywhere, everywhere. So this isn't just our Jesus cookie because we've been good this week and this is our reward. It's literally our practice to be attentive to find his presence anywhere. And there it is. Plain and simple. There's so much that our minds and our eyes and our ears are inundated with, more now than ever at any time in human history. The stimulus coming at us, it's infinite. And so then the question becomes not what kind of soil we are. I think that's a fair question, but I don't think it comes first. I think the first question has to be, what has our attention? What has our attention? And once we can say what I want my attention to be, because we will give our attention to that which we love, and we will grow to love that which we give our attention. They're absolutely connected to each other. And so that's the invitation given to us today. That the apostles like, well, why you give it to them that way? Because they couldn't hear it any other way. It has to start there. It's not a door closed to them. It's a stained glass window that they could look through if they choose to. And so that in each and every moment of our life is an opportunity to say, where can I find Jesus in this moment? And we practice it. With anything else, as we love into something, we grow into it. That's why he said, those who have will have more. That's not some cruel windfall for the wealthy. That's not at all what he's talking about. He's just saying, if you have love and you look for love, you'll have more love. It's the reticular activating system in the universe. Simply saying that once you've said, this is what I want, you'll find it. You'll find it everywhere. And so for us, as we prepare to receive him in this Eucharist, to open our hands, open our hearts, open our eyes and our ears and say, Lord, let my attention come to this simple, not grandiose expression of you. And as I take that into my very molecules, into my very cells, let it change how I see, how I experience others, so that I indeed am someone whose attention is on love and mercy and forgiveness and redemption. And then, as I say to people over and over again, there's just one sun, right? And you can take that either way, S-U-N or S-O-N. For us, there's just one sun. As we know, the moon has no light of its own. It simply reflects the light of the sun. And we reflect the light of the S-O-N when our attention is focused on him. So as we prepare to receive him, we know the invitation. Let us prepare our hearts to do so. May God be praised.